Certainly. Below is a long-form, cinematic video script in English, around 20,000 characters, written for your YouTube channel, complete with a compelling channel introduction to invite new subscribers. This script is ideal for voiceover narration over a visual story or animation, with natural pauses, dramatic beats, and rich emotional pacing. Full cinematic script. Title: The Boy Who Drowned in Silence. Format: long-form narrative. 20,000 characters. For the Nomad Recounts YouTube. Intro, channel hook 00140. Slow piano music begins, paired with dark cinematic visuals. Ocean waves, ancient scrolls, flickering candlelight. Narrator, deep, calm voice. Welcome to the Nomad Recounts, where ancient truths whisper through modern storms. Here we dive into stories not just to pass time, but to awaken the soul. Each tale is crafted with the weight of philosophy, the mystery of legend, and the silence between battles we often fight alone. If you seek more than just motivation, if you're searching for meaning in the chaos, then subscribe, because the storm is coming, and your story is not over yet. Visual prompt: subscribe for cinematic philosophy and real stories. Main story: The Boy Who Drowned in Silence, 41 end. Music shifts into ambient sea sounds, distant thunder. There was once a boy who lived in a village shaped by the ocean, where children learned to fish before they could write, and prayers were carried out to sea with folded leaves and whispered wishes. But this boy, Elian, he feared the water. He feared it not because he couldn't swim, not because of tales of sea monsters or drowning sailors, but because when he looked into the ocean, he saw himself. The shore 120. Every morning, Elian would climb a ridge above the cove. He would sit there, watching the boats drift into the blue, while the salt hung in the air like a ghost that never left. His father was once a sailor, gone in a storm. No body, no funeral, only silence returned from the tide. And so Elian stayed, feet buried in sand, heart buried in fear. Others said he was cursed. Too quiet, too strange. But in truth, Elian had simply learned how loud the world became when you stopped pretending you were okay. To the storm, 3:15. One summer the sky stopped smiling. Clouds became thick and angry. Winds screamed through the valley. And one night, the sea rose up and swallowed half the village. Flooded homes, falling trees, and boats became lifelines. The villagers called out to each other, boarding what rafts they could find. But Elian, he stood motionless. He watched the waves like he'd met them before. Someone yelled, "Get in or die!" But Elian couldn't move. His body was stiff, not from fear of drowning, but from the memories that waited inside the waves. And that's when he saw the old man.
Thur, the compass, 5:05. A blind elder, dressed in blue robes torn by wind, stepped into the rain. He said nothing, only walked to Elian and placed something cold and heavy in his hand. A compass, but the needle didn't point north. It spun in slow circles, like it was broken, or searching. The old man whispered, "You're not meant to run, you're meant to remember." And then he vanished into the crowd. Elian looked down at the compass, and for the first time, he stepped toward the water. Veer the sea, 6:45. He climbed into a half-broken boat. He didn't know how to steer, didn't know where to go, but he went anyway. As the storm pushed him deeper into open sea, he clutched the rope with white knuckles, eyes locked on the spinning compass. And that's when the whispers began, not from the waves, but from within. "You're just like your father. You're weak." This was a mistake. V, the voice of fear, ate Mound. For hours, or maybe days, he drifted, alone with nothing but sky, sea, and silence. It wasn't the silence of peace. It was the silence that echoes when every voice in your life, every critic, every doubt, finally stops, and all you're left with is the voice you've been avoiding. Elian cried, not because he was sad, but because the ocean was finally reflecting who he really was. Vixard, the surrender, 10:15. Then came the moment. A wave hit, the boat cracked, and Elian was thrown into the water. No screams, no fight. He simply sank, down into the dark, past the noise, past the memory of his father, past the fear, and in that weightless stillness, Elian saw himself as a child, smiling, curious, unafraid. The water wasn't drowning him. It was returning him. 7th, the island, 12:30. He awoke on a quiet shore. Sunlight warm, waves gentle. He didn't know the island, but he knew himself. The compass lay beside him, still spinning, but he no longer needed it, because for the first time, Elian wasn't looking for direction. He was ready to walk. Vate, Return of the Silence, 1410. Years later, a traveler returned to that same ridge above the village. Older, taller, wiser. He carried a wooden staff and wore a calmness that made others hush. Children asked who he was. He only smiled and said, "I'm someone who learned to listen." And when they asked, "Listen to what?" he looked out to sea, the waves crashing wild and free, and whispered, "Silence." Closing message, 15:0+. Music rises softly. Sometimes we think fear is the enemy, but fear is only the gatekeeper of truth. It guards the place we're too scared to visit, the place where healing waits. Elian didn't defeat the sea. He didn't tame the storm. He simply stopped running, and in that stillness, he was no longer a boy afraid to drown. He became a man who knew how to swim. Outro, final 30 seconds. Narrator. This story was brought to you by the Nomad Recounts, where silence speaks, and stories remember what we've forgotten. If this tale stirred something in you, subscribe, like, and share. Because next time, we travel deeper. To fear, to freedom, to yourself. Until then, listen to the silence. It may be calling your name.